Hello my loyal companions, welcome back to the channel and to another complete rogue guide. Today having a look at FIXER. As always, I'll be going over his weapons, abilities and perks. I'll then be giving you an upgrade priority system so you know exactly what to buy when you're in game. And finally, I'll be giving you some playstyle tips so you can play him a little bit more effectively. If you do go on to enjoy the video or just want to see daily educational rogue company content, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel. But for now, let's get into it. As of the recording of this video, FIXER is the most recent rogue to be added to the game, and he can definitely have said to have shaken things up a lot, from having very strong weapons that have now been tuned down slightly to having an amazing ability that really counters a lot of the smoke play in the game. He has been a dynamic rogue to be added, and I think a lot of people have enjoyed playing him or not enjoyed playing against him. Let's break down the abilities though so we know exactly what we're talking about when we're looking at FIXER. His passive is called Shrapnel Rounds, and what this does is when he hits someone with a firearm, he slows them for a very small portion. This slow is basically negative. I've never really seen it become particularly impactful within game. I do think it's actually in need of a buff to make it worth using at the moment. He's basically got a non-passive. I don't know the exact measurement of the slow. I imagine it's somewhere around 5% or less. Then his main ability is called Thermal Vision, and this is what really makes his kit and what makes him so strong in my opinion, other than his weapons. When activated, what this allows FIXER to do is instead of seeing enemies normally with his own eyes, he sees them as heat signatures, and this is great because it means he's able to see through smokes and other obscuring factors within the game as well. Enemies glow up as this orange tint, but they also have a little bit of a glow to them as well, so you can actually, if they're close enough to a corner, actually see where they're peeking around corners and get some information that way. It's a really good ability because it makes the rest of the screen kind of bluey tinted, and then the orange really pops out from it, so you're able to get a lot more information than you normally would, and of course you get to see through smokes. This ability lasts 12 seconds and is really strong because no one else can get that same advantage. Yes, he is countered by reveals, and yes, he is countered by tracker rounds and things like that, but he has such great dominance over that smoked area, and with his other gadgets and perks, it really enables him to be good at this game and be a must pick. I'll go into a little bit more around how you can play around these smokes as we get into the tip section at the end of this video. Breaking down his weapons though, he has some unique weapons specifically to him, starting with his sniper rifle, a unique sniper rifle called the Tear. This is a bolt action 50 caliber sniper rifle that does 60 body damage, recently nerfed. It did used to do 70, but it has been reduced to 60, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the playstyle tips as well. This also only has 2 rounds in its magazine size, but an extremely fast fire rate, and that is what you'll see a lot of FIXERs be using, is this double tap body shot to get it down, rather than always relying on the headshot. Again, we'll talk a little bit more in the playstyle tips. As you upgrade this weapon though, you increase the scope speed and movement speed while aiming at tier 1. You then at tier 2 reduce its kick, so increase its handling basically. And at tier 3 you increase the reload speed and nullify the damage drop off. His other weapon is the D3DI, also known as the Deadeye, which is the same as Talon's DMR, and is actually a really good DMR if you're able to hit the double headshot that is needed. If you don't, it's a little bit lackluster, but generally if you can hit that double headshot, it's really strong. As you upgrade to tier 1, you increase the magazine size from 12 to 16. At tier 2, you increase the hip fire accuracy and reduces reticle bloom, and at tier 3, you suppress its fire and reduces recoil even further. Originally, when I first heard of FIXER, I did think that the D3DI would be the optimal weapon for him, although honestly, both are just as good. I thought he would fit into the DMR meta with this, but the sniper is also really strong, and that is why it's been the subject of so many nerfs recently. You can use either depending on your playstyle. If you're on a much longer range map or you want that pick potential, then the Tear is great. If you're looking for something a bit more reliable and a bit more close quarters, then the D3DI is a great option as well. It really depends on your playstyle and the situation at hand. Going on to his secondary weapons, this is another place where we get a little bit interesting. He has a unique pistol called the Warrant, which is a really strong pistol, and honestly when it first came out before its nerfs, was a little bit broken. This is a lightweight, semi-automatic, fast fire rate pistol that does decent damage, and that's why it has so many factors to it, and that's why it was so strong. As you upgrade to tier 1, you increase the reload speed, and as you upgrade to tier 2, you improve the damage range and reduce the accuracy bloom. And also this gun has 15 magazine size. So this is a very similar gun to the P12K in terms of its fire rate, in terms of its damage, and just good time to kill. However, the difference is the P12K is 7 rounds, this gun has 15 rounds. It does a little bit less damage, but that's still really strong. And that is kind of why it's been dominating, and you actually can compete with some SMGs up close range if you're able to weave in some headshots with this weapon. His melee weapon is the baseball bat, and this is obviously the more swung weapon with the bigger hitbox when you throw it. At tier 1 you increase the lunge distance, and at tier 2 you increase the swing damage. As I mentioned, with his ability, he plays around smoke grenades a lot, so it's obvious that he has a smoke grenade in his gadgets. However, he has a different smoke grenade than what we're used to. He has something called a cluster smoke. What this does is you throw it down and after a short detonation period, it explodes into 2 clusters of different smoke grenades. They last slightly longer than the regular smoke grenade, but do provide pretty much the same surface area. As you upgrade to tier 1, you increase that smoke duration so it becomes competitive with the normal smoke grenades, and then at tier 2, you enable it to have a 3 cluster system. So instead of splitting 2 off to the side, it splits 2 off to the side and 1 further in front, which covers a much bigger area and is actually a really good upgrade for this piece of equipment. His other gadget is the C4, which is a plastic explosive device that detonates upon remote controlled use and sticks to surfaces. This is a really good piece of equipment, but I do think you need the upgrades in it, particularly the first one, which at tier 1 will increase the throw distance, which is a must after its nerf a few patches ago, and then the other upgrade will increase its damage to 150 from 130. Now going on to his perks, in the 4000 category he has Shredder Rounds and Berserker. In 6500 he has Helping Hands and Bounce Back, and in 10,000 he has Life Drain and Headstrong. In terms of which perks I think are good for him, I think Bounce Back is a really good one. He does get into these engagements with his sniper and will take occasional poke damage if he isn't able to land an instant headshot, so having Bounce Back to regain some health there is great. You could, although, opt for Life Drain. That is the other option. I don't see the point of getting both. They're both health regen related, so I would pick one or the other. Now Headstrong is really good as well. A little bit of extra health that can now be repaired is great. He's very health focused, as you can see with those 3 perks I've mentioned already. And then he does have Helping Hands as well, which I think is great. If a teammate does go down near him, he can revive them nice and quickly. Let's now look at how I would recommend upgrading FIXER using the upgrade priority system here shown in front of you. As always, there are 3 different tiers that I've highlighted. I have the high priority, which are things you must buy. I have the interchangeable, which are things you should get at some point, but you can mess around with the order depending on preference. And then the low priority or situationals, which are things I don't think you really need unless the situation really calls for it. And of course, there are the rounds that you're most likely to buy these here on the left, but we're going to go over the most noticeable ones right here. In round 1, I recommend getting your cluster smoke. He plays around smoke as a massive part of his kit, and you shouldn't rely on your teammates to be throwing the smokes in the right positions. You need to be playing around that yourself. So I would recommend getting that cluster smoke round 1, and then obviously at round 2, be getting your primary weapon of choice, whether that be the Deadeye or whether it be the Tear. As you then move into the later rounds, I do recommend at some point picking up Bounce Back and the melee option if you so feel like it. He has 2 long-range weapons. Yes, the Warrant is really good up close, but the back can be a little bit more reliable if you are good with it, of course, because it gets that instant down. I then personally like to upgrade the cluster smoke to its max. I think having the increased duration and that extra cluster from it is really good, and I would recommend it. Then I would look at getting the first 2 upgrades into your weapon. I do not think you need the 3rd one. You can get it if you like it a bit later down, but you do not need it as part of his core kit, where I think the first 2 really benefit him. That's when you then want to be working your way into the perks, and I recommend Headstrong and Helping Hands as 2 really core ones that you should be looking at getting. After that, this is when you could opt for the C4. Personally, I think C4 is a little bit weak right now, unless you get the first upgrade as soon as you buy it. Just having the base C4 isn't really worth it in my opinion, because it has such a low throw distance, which is why I don't think it's worth putting that 8,000 for the buying it and upgrading it once up early. I think it's a better for a little bit later, or if it's a situational thing that you might need. Let's now go on to some playstyle tips to help you play FIXER a little bit better, because he has a very unique and I think high skill cap playstyle that is worth exploring. We'll start with talking about his weapons and the way you should play around them. If you're using the D3DI, as I've mentioned, you do need to be hitting that double headshot. It's a really punishing gun if you're not accurate at hitting headshots because of the damage it has and the time to kill. You really need to be landing them, otherwise you're not going to compete with ARs and DMRs in the same category. When it comes to the tier though, you have a few more different options. Of course, if you're a great sniper and you can hit consistent headshots, go for it. Land those headshots, make sure you're reloading in between if possible, because you do only have a 2-round mag. However, you should also be looking, if you're maybe less confident of a sniper, or you just know that you need to be consistent to hit this down, instead of going for the headshot, go for a quick double tap body shot. The fire rate does allow for this very quickly, and you will do 120 damage. Now it's key to remember, you do 120. So if somebody has armor, or in Vi's case, she has 125 health from her passive, you will not down these people. And I think this is actually a really good change in why they nerfed it. So the Headstrong is now a counter to the double body shot from FIXER. And then your other option is to play around the Warrant, and I actually think this is a really good strategy. You can use this gun and really compete up against SMGs. When you get into the mid-range, it's not as good as most other guns, but at close range, you can absolutely shred due to the fire rate, damage, and time to kill. That's the breakdown of the weapons and the situations I think they're best used for. Personally, it does come down to a lot of personal preference, but they are very versatile in the way you can use them, and you should be exploring them all to know what best fits your playstyle. Now let's talk about his ability, and this is the real kicker. When should you use it and how should you use it? Now, the most obvious way is to obviously throw down your own class of smoke grenade and use the smoke then, and use the ability then to see through it and gain a really good advantage by seeing through that smoke. This is great for throwing it around a corner that you know an enemy might be in, then rushing it, being able to see and they can't see you. It's also great for just holding down a longer angle where you think you might be getting counter sniped by, say, a phantom. You have the advantage over her now because you can see through a smoke that you've placed down. You can also use it defensively. Say you're getting rushed, you can throw it down in front of you and then allow the enemies to rush around you while you're sitting in the smoke and able to see through it, find the right opportunity, and then start taking shots out without warrant. It's a really great defensive and offensive ability that you should be using in different situations and play around them in different ways. But you need to be very aware of the other fixer on the enemy team, if there is one, when you use this smoke. Personally, I prefer to bait out his smoke and then use it that way, or double up the smoke, so he throws his smoke, you throw your smoke, and then you can play around a really big smoked area together. You win that fight if you're good enough, and then you have a good advantage over the rest of the enemies because you've got a double smoke to play around in that area. The reason I think you're most likely to get a fixer on the enemy team is just because of the nature of fixer at the moment. He's so strong that a team who does have him has a massive advantage over a team who doesn't. So everyone's picking fixer at the moment just to make sure that they're at least on an even playing field, or could get an advantage if the enemy team slips up on it. I think in terms of solo queue for ranked, or just solo queue generally if you're looking to win games, fixer is a must. He's so strong and he completely breaks through the smoke everything off and plant meta because he can see through it. Another big tip I have for fixer though is you need to be very aware of your positioning. This being your positioning with smoke, your positioning in terms of the longer angles you need to hold, and the surprise angles that you need to be sitting in when you're in smoke to bait out the enemies. A lot of the time it's very obvious just to sit in the smoke, so you maybe don't want to play in the smoke, but put it in a position where you could sit away from the smoke. They start blasting bullets in the smoke thinking you're in there, but you're actually not. They put themselves out of position to do that and you're able to capitalize on it. You don't want to be doing the most obvious thing with Fixer, which would be throw the smoke down and sit in it. Of course, 9 times out of 10 it's actually going to work because people still aren't used to thinking about it as they should do. But as you get against better players, they'll be aware of this and they'll try and play around it. And this kind of comes into the counters of Fixer that I do want to make you all aware of, particularly for you Fixer players, and how you should try and avoid getting countered by him. The first thing that is a massive counter to Fixer is Reveal. Dallas and Phantom and Tracker rounds are all great counters to Fixer, whether it be Phantom throwing her nano smoke down in your own smoke to stop you being able to stand in it and not be revealed, whether it be a Dallas just getting a nice reveal off on you, or whether it be Tracker rounds shooting you through the smoke, getting a clip off, and now the entire enemy team knows where you are. You need to be very aware of tracker rounds and other forms of reveal, so do, when you are, maybe hold off on using your ability until those things have been wasted. The other massive thing that will counter you as a Fixer is grenades and lethals. A lot of people will spam the smoke with grenades and lethals when you pop your ability, so that's another reason why you should be sitting away from it for a period of time. You need to be very aware. Vi is a great counter because she just throws down her zone control in the middle of it, and you need to just be really aware of this. You do not have tenacity on Fixer, and even with Headstrong, a lot of grenades will be able to do enough damage to kill you, so do be very cautious of grenades and play around your positioning a lot. To kind of summarize Fixer, he's a very high skill cap rogue. He takes a lot of good knowledge, whether it be the maps, the guns, or just the general positioning within the game to play him effectively, but when you can, he can absolutely dominate, and if you're accurate with a sniper, or you're just accurate generally within the game, you can really roll through enemy teams. He's a very good 1v4 solo carry as long as your team stay alive, and you can put off some really clutch plays. He also, as I said, is a massive counter to this smoke meta, and that's why he's so core. I think if you're trying to solo queue in ranked, you should definitely try picking him up as long as you're comfortable. If you're not a great sniper, use that D3DI and get good with it, or just run around with the warrant, because as I said, it is pretty good. Okay then guys, that takes us to the end of the video, and if you did enjoy, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. You can also come follow me on twitch.tv/RadtharGaming, see live gameplay commentaries, guides, Q&As, tournaments and scrims. All links you need are down in the description below, but for now guys, I hope you have a fantastic day, and remember, be loyal, be brave, be relentless, and I'll catch you in the next video.